first set of stairs done. God damn it. G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Dingle's DIY. Now, today I want to show you how to do some stairs with cut stringers. Now, I've already done a video on stairs which were basic and we didn't cut the stringers. So there's a lot of fundamentals in that video. In this video, I'm just going to get a bit more specific with the stringers. Now, if you don't know what stringers are, they're basically the sides of your steps. And there's pretty much 3 different ways to build stairs. There's the version where I've already shown you. There's the version I'm going to show you today. And then the other version would be where you would house the treads into the sides of these stringers. So you wouldn't cut them, you would just maybe do a 10-15 mil recess with a router and then kind of sandwich your risers and your treads between the stringers. We're going to need a few basic tools for this. Pretty critical you get a big enough square and an angle finder. Straight edges help. This is my angle finder. A straight edge or a spirit level, a long one is good. But you can also use string just so that we can measure our angles to something physical, which will be the string on the straight edge. So I've shown you what I've set up now, and then I'll show you how to mark it out, cut them, and then yeah, we'll go through the benefits and things like that later. Now this is the stairwell inside. This is why I'm building stairs again, is because I want temporary stairs inside the house now. Now I have started to map out the stringer with some string, funnily enough. It's not going to be exactly like this. I've changed my mind on how I want to approach it. But basically, you've got your starting point up there. We've pre-calculated how many risers we have and how many treads we have. And then with that information, you decide on your measurements per step. And then you add them up all together, which will give us our total run and our total rise, which is defined by that landing. So now we have that information. We can get those angles, cut the stringer, mock it up, and then we can cut into it with our stairs. So we'll cross that bridge later. Alright, I'm going to redo this string. So I know my total run of the staircase and I know the height of each step. So at the bottom I've got the total run and I've come up 1 step. I put a nail in the wall there and I've got a nail at the top here. So this string will give us our first angle. That edge is parallel with this string. It's giving me an angle of 35 degrees. These timbers here are pretty much overkill, but I got them second hand because someone was using them for formwork and they didn't need them anymore, so they sold me each one of these for 50 bucks a piece, which is pretty cheap for how wide they are. So wide timber is what you need for the staircases. We want to take that first angle, make our first cut with that, and then everything pretty much starts from that angle. Right angles from the plumb cuts will be your foot cuts. So I'll show you that now. So that's that first angle. Now we know each rise for me is 193. You want to be as accurate as you can with these numbers and these measurements. So we've come down 193. That's our first riser. If we come at a right angle to this line, which is it's important why we have a big, nice, flat square, that's our first tread. So if we cut that little triangle out, as well as this piece here and that triangle, that's the top of our first step. And then we just continue this pattern along the timber all the way to the bottom. Now, if we've been accurate enough, that measurement should match our plans. So, alright, we missed it by 5 mil, but I can live with that for a temporary staircase. Honestly, not that bad. I just want to check that we haven't got lost in this measurement here. But if you start right, you'll finish right. Alright, so from here, you can either keep using your angle finder, right? So that every one of these lines should be 35 degrees from that edge. It should also be perpendicular to these, so you can come at a right angle to this line. The issue is if your lines are wrong and you're measuring off each line, every time you move down you get less and less accurate. So I would recommend using your angle finder and do it that way. So do one angle, then use your square, do the angle, use your square. Now as we cut into this, we're going to lose strength in the timber. that's okay so long as the timber's wide enough. Now, the distance from here to here, that's the shortest point. That's why we measure square from this edge. That distance needs to be 100 millimeters or 4 inches. Otherwise, you're going to need extra support or wider timber. So for me, I've got 210. I've got double what I need. So that's good enough. That there's called the throat. So that's where all your strength is. There's no strength in these little triangles. They're just there to hold your steps level and plumb and all the rest of that. So that's probably the most critical thing, is to make sure your timber is wide enough so that you have a 4-inch throat left over. Alright, here's the proof of concept. Now there's one major mistake that I have made, which is okay, we can still fix that, but I should have been on it from the start. Normally when I do stringers like this, I'm working with a deck, and I'll do all my framing and then do all the decking to last. So you could imagine adding decking to the top of every one of these, all the way up until here. And then we would also add decking to here, because this would just be framework. So you're basically increasing the height of everything by the same amount. Now, we're not building a deck. The landing is the finished height. So I'm not going to be adding any treads or thickness to this amount. So what I need to do is allow for the thickness of each tread. Each tread is 45 mil, which means I have to take 45 mil out of here on each step, so that by the time I put the treads back on, everything lines up. But I'll just use a straight edge or a piece of string, just to give you a demonstration of what we need to happen once the treads are on. So a good way to tell that you've actually done a good job of building stairs is that each one of those points hits the straight edge. So we're looking pretty good here, which makes sense, right? Now if we imagine these offcuts to be our treads are going to sit on top and they're going to sit flush here, right? So if we add one of these to every one of those steps except the last step, we're going to be too hard by the time we get to here. So to make sure that doesn't happen, we've got to cut a further 45 mil out in my case, because that's how thick my treads are. Like I said, if you are building a deck and you will be adding material on top of your landing, then what we've done here is correct. But if you're trying to build an internal staircase like I am, then what I need to do is account for the thickness of each tread in those cuts. So we'll recut it, clean it up, get those little overburdens off, and then we'll start screwing this together. To support the stringer. It missed this top beam, but that top beam is there to support the landing. So I've measured down 193, that's the height of the riser, plus another 45 to allow for the tread. So I've got that mark here, that's where we start. Now this should be self-supporting, so it doesn't need a screw in every stud, it should just be supported by the ground and this beam here. So any screws along here are just to stop it from sliding forwards. Now depending on what your treads are and how thick they are and how strong they are, depends on how many cut stringers you need to support them from underneath. Now if you're using a 20 mil decking, generally between 450 and 600 mil is the span, so you would need a cut stringer every 450 or 600 mil, somewhere in between that. For me, I'm using big chunky treads, 45 mil thick, they're LVLs, so they're really strong. I'm pretty confident they can span 900 mil, which is what this distance is. That's it for cutting stringers. Now we can just do our treads, slam them in. It's so much easier at this stage compared to the example I did earlier in a different video. So instead of having to levitate a tread and then screw it in from the sides, you can just sit it on top of these cut stringers and then screw it in from above just so they don't slip out. So preparation is harder, but the installation is a lot easier and it's a lot stronger because you're not relying on 50 mil worth of bat and screw, whereas with this you're not relying on the screws, you're relying on the throat of your stringer, which is much stronger. So along with each of those beams costing me 50 bucks each, so 150 bucks worth of timber inside, all of this cost me $50, all of it. So that's why I'm using what I'm using. That's why it's a bit dirty, that's why it's second hand, but 200 bucks for all the timber and a handful of screws to build a full staircase is pretty damn cheap. We'll keep them long if we can, and we'll use all these short ones and build our stairs. That's it for this side. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do the rest, it's the same theory, and I've also got to break through, cut the floor out up there. So, thanks for following along. If you want to see me cut through the floor and have a bit of fun joining the top to the bottom, then follow along, subscribe. I am doing build episodes on this house. Feel free to check that out. And yeah, if you want more information on how to build stairs, especially the theory, I've already done one for the stairs that are out the front. So check that out in conjunction with this. You should be unstoppable. And we'll see you on the next video.